very long. But my name is Angela Horvath, and I study tick-borne diseases in farming communities in the Midwest with my professor, Dr. Dalton. So we are working hard on trying to prevent things like Lyme disease and alpha-gal and ehrlichiosis and babesiosis. So a whole list of them, and we'll get into them in a little bit. But I wanted to put my favorite animal up on this slide because when I was a little kid, we lived mostly in Arizona. I was born in Arizona. And in the summer times, we would go to Indiana to my grandparents' farm. And it was my job in the summer times to get up and pick up the eggs. And so I have developed a really fondness for chickens. Anyway. Um, I did a kind of a variety of careers and ended up back in my life, in my mid 40s thinking, I'd really like to become a researcher. Like, this is something that I think is important. I really want to help people stay healthy. And I want to find out the best way to do it because otherwise we're wasting a lot of money on it, right? So um, I went back and at the age of 47 to get my PhD, and I'm now in my second year. And we are getting pretty serious. We want a grant. So we've got some money to kind of explore why farm communities might be differently exposed, which kind of means like how much more are they in contact with ticks, right? So we know that tick-borne diseases are pretty big here in Iowa. And you can see the Lyme disease cases kind of center around the areas that are wooded or forested. You can also, can you see my cursor as I move it? Like, am I pointing out something? Okay, cool. And you can see this is actually has everybody heard of Lyme disease? Show of hand, yeah. Okay, great. If again, stop me if I'm talking about things that make no sense. This is actually this blue American map is alpha-gal. Has everybody heard of alpha-gal as well? It's the meat allergy. So people actually are bitten by ticks and they're exposed to a certain chemical in the tick's saliva, and then they will develop a severe allergy, just like you might to like a wasp bite or something. So you can go into anaphylaxis. And a lot of the time people don't get diagnosed really quickly with it because when you eat meat, it takes about 6 hours for the reaction to start. So people are like, I just went into anaphylaxis. I don't know why. And really it's because they were eating mammalian meat. So you could still eat bird meat, but mammal meat is off the table once you have developed this allergy. And for most people, it's lifelong. So that is from a specific tick, and we can talk a little bit more about that if people are curious. But I wanted to also bring in the idea of extreme weather. So ticks and weather. Any thoughts about what might be happening with ticks and extreme weather? Anybody want to guess? I mean, I can say something. So there's a couple of different things. It's not as straightforward as you might think. So first, we know that a lot of tick habitats are expanding. So the ticks that carry Lyme disease are now, they're spreading Lyme disease to many more places. The ticks that carry alpha-gal, different tick, it's spread to many more places as well. And it's coming in here to Iowa. And we expect it to kind of make it into Nebraska and possibly into southern Wisconsin and Minnesota too over the years. But the other thing that is happening when we see a lot of storms, we don't actually expect tick numbers to drop because they like to hide in leaf litter. So unless there's a huge, huge flood that kind of washes away all the leaf litter, they're pretty much like big winter storms. They can just kind of hide out and they won't get destroyed. So it's unfortunate. So this is the slide that I want. If I could just have everybody know what's on this slide, everybody in the whole United States, I would be so happy. Because farmers are at really high risk for tick-borne disease. The woodland fringes, remember they like to hide in leaf litter. Those are some of the places of highest, like you're going to come into contact with ticks the most. And of course, the second thing is animals, livestock. Chickens are supposed to be really chickens are supposed to be very protective. They will eat ticks. but they really can't eat enough to make a dent. And a lot of the time they carry ticks, like ticks will bite them. So unfortunately, that is a myth. We don't actually think that chickens help. Keeping chickens helps the ticks down. But there's lots of ways to protect your family. It's super important, right? Um, tuck in your shirt into your pants and your pants into your socks. It's so dorky, but it helps prevent the ticks from crawling up your legs from the ground because ticks, actually, this picture here with the finger and the little tick on the grass, ticks don't fall from trees. They actually hang out on grass tips and they quest and they kind of move their arms around like this, looking for something to grab onto finally. And then they'll climb onto you and then they'll climb up you, typically. So tuck everything in. Do a tick check on yourself and your family after wandering around. Check your pets that go outside for ticks, pull those off, and then bathe after work ASAP. You can use permethrin, which is kind of a treated chemical, but then you have to worry a little bit about the exposure to toxic chemicals. So, if you're going to be in a tick infested area, it might be worth it. But if you're just like casually, like we don't know, it might not be worth it. So, all right. Has anybody ever had to remove a tick? Oh my goodness, everybody? I'm from Arizona. We don't do that so much there. Okay, that's crazy. So how do y'all remove it? Just pulled it off? Oh my gosh. Okay. So get yourself a pair of tweezers. By the time April comes along, get yourself a pair of those fine nose tweezers and like make sure that when you get the tick, you kind of like brush it up like the picture number 2 here. And then pull it straight up. You don't want the head to get stuck in because then it'll get infected and it'll be more likely to give you diseases. Um, all right. So once you got this tick off, you can actually send it into Iowa, a guy named Ryan Smith at ISU, and he will identify that tick for you to figure out what you might have because certain diseases are in certain ticks, right? And then watch for signs of sickness, right? And if you get sick, a lot of the time you'll get this bullseye where the tick bit you. It's really common for Lyme disease, but some others as well. Go get that checked out right away. Go to your doctor. It's worth it because you can get on antibiotics right away and you won't have the long-lasting symptoms of Lyme disease. So that's all I got. I'm happy to answer more questions, but I'm really excited what other people have to say too. So.
All right, thank you so much, Angela. We are going to jump into the next introduction, and that is Ellen.
Hello. Let's see. All right, so I am Ellen, and I haven't been farming very long. This was my garden in 2022. So can you see it? It's that little thing right there between the two garages. And that's my house in the background. I was living in a 2-flat, and in 2023, we moved to Southwest Wisconsin and started our farm. We have dairy goats was really the big thing, and then we have chickens and ducks and geese and turkeys as well. So, come on, computer. There we go. So this is my farm now. It's a little bigger. I also have 2 orchards and huge garden now bigger than my entire property when I was in the city. But yeah, first 48 years of my life in Chicago, and then made the move out here. So I actually make my money as an exercise physiologist. And people always assume that because I am working in fitness that I am some kind of athlete, but in fact, I am a classic pick last in gym nerd. And I actually got into exercise physiology 28 years ago because I was sick all the time. I was sick my whole life. And somewhere along the way, a doctor was like, yeah, we still don't know what's wrong with you, but maybe try exercise. And it's not that exercise fixed me. I still have all the things wrong, but made me so much more functional, made me feel so much better. And I got so excited about it that I went back to school to get my master's degree in exercise physiology. I work mostly with people with chronic disease, disability, chronic pain. And since I moved, I am now working with farmers and really trying to help farmers learn how to prevent injuries and also how to be able to maintain their bodies so that they can keep farming as they age. So this is a statistic from 2014. I know it's old, but that's the very last time that they decided to get data on farmers. They decided it wasn't useful anymore. So this is the most recent data that we have. And if you look at the total tally of farm injuries, agriculture work-related injuries, by far the biggest category is sprains, strains, torn ligaments, or soft tissue injuries, which, yeah, of course, there's going to be some of those that are not preventable, but a lot of those soft tissue injuries are totally preventable with proper preparation and conditioning. And unfortunately, a lot of people never fully recover from those soft tissue injuries. So if you want to stay strong, even if you're not an athlete, you have to think like an athlete. So in the short term, like day of, you have to warm up. I see so many people go out to do these really intense, basically workouts, and they just start. An athlete would never do that. You have to take the time to warm your body up properly first, like 5 minutes. We're not talking about having to do a whole complicated routine. And then while you're doing whatever it is you're going to do, learning proper biomechanics. So learning how to, people say lift with your legs, not your back. It really should be lift with your butt. So learning how to lift heavy things in ways that put the least amount of stress on your body. People really, really commonly injure themselves when they're twisting. And so learning how to pivot rather than twisting in the lumbar spine. I could go on, there's a million different little things, but learning those proper biomechanics so that you're not hurting yourself. But probably just as importantly, in the long term, you have to train for your sport. So unfortunately, you know, as farmers, we go out and whatever our season is, if you're doing vegetable farming, if you're doing livestock, I don't think my season ever ends. Like everybody's like, oh, it's winter. We're just going to like chill out now. This is our slow time. I'm like, what? No, this is the hardest time. I hate winter. But you have to train for your sport. So if you know you're going to be doing a lot of bending over, if you're pulling weeds, if you're lifting goats, I don't lift my goats that often, but if you're lifting hay, if you're carrying buckets of water, whatever those movements that you're doing long term, you have to train for those. You have to do strength training. You have to do mobility training. Just like an athlete would in the off season, that's when they actually do the most intense workouts. In season, they just work out to kind of maintain and prevent injury. But off season, that's when they put in the really intense work to make sure they're ready for next season. So I get very excited about.
And Lucinda, so we don't lose you again, are you okay if Mo shares your slides for you?
I can do it.
Oh, you got it. All right. Excellent. Okay. There we
There
are.
we go.
Yeah, that one works.
Okay.
From the
So I'm
beginning.
in north central Kansas, and we're between the Glacial Hills, the Flint Hills, and the Smoky Hills, right where the three of them intersect. And you've probably heard that Kansas is flat. That's not us. The cropland is on the gentle slopes, and the native grass prairies are where the limestone is just below the soil. And so that is impossible to till. And so that's why it's prairie and grassland. It's never been broken out. This is my family. And we started out with two brothers, and they were farming together. And that's me in the green jacket at the bottom of the second slide. And unfortunately, about a month after this picture was taken, both brothers died in a vehicle accident. So since our children were young, my goal became keeping the farm together so that we could pass it on to the next generation, as the youngest two in the blue shirts wanted to farm. But you never know if they really are going to farm when they grow up. But anyway, we were fortunate in that our farmers had life insurance on each other. So that helped to fund a lot of things, including changing the infrastructure so that women and children could actually run the farm. What did not help was that we had a farm trust, but my husband forgot to put the land, the machinery, the equipment, the livestock, and the investments retitled into the trust. So make sure that if you have a trust, you populate it with all of the title changes. And we had completed an environmental assessment tool, and each of the crop fields, the pastures, the woods, the ponds, streams, wells, nutrient management, pest management, farmstead safety, farmstead management were all analyzed and scored, and we made a plan for what we were going to improve for the next 15 years. And I used that to guide my decisions. The first thing I did, however, was to sell all of the beautiful cows the guys had kept regardless of disposition, but they were ornery, and I didn't want any of us to get hurt. So I sent 10 of them to the stockyards right away, even though they were pregnant. And that also gave us some seed money to build this maternity barn. Our big, strong cowboys used to rope the cows that were having difficulty calving and pull them over to a fence post and deliver the calf. That was not in my skill set. So this barn was a big bonus. There's a box stall in each of the four corners, and two of the box stalls have maternity gates on them. The center there is great for sorting things. And this is a Women Caring for the Land tour shortly after our maternity barn was built. The youngest boy was my nephew. He was in kindergarten when his dad died. The one in the green was in fourth grade when his dad died. And the taller young man was a neighbor. He lived with his grandma in town and didn't have cows, but he loved cows. So he kept coming out and hanging out. And I hired him to help me while he was in high school and college. And he became my right-hand man. First of all, I put the cow in the box stall, and I opened the head gate, and I baited the front of it with hay. And as she reaches for the hay, her shoulders shut the gate. I don't have to rodeo her to get her in there. I'm using her natural tendencies to help to catch her. And then I put the side gate against her so that she feels more comfortable and doesn't thrash around, doesn't hurt me, doesn't hurt herself. And the bottom half of that side gate pulls out like a Dutch gate, and I can milk her. I can teach a calf to nurse. I can rope her foot and lift it up in case she's limping to check out if there's something in her hoof. So that has really been a blessing for us. And our guys used to carry the calves to the barn if they needed medical attention. That also was not in my skill set. So get the biggest wheelbarrow that you can find with the biggest wheels and put the nose down by the calf, keeping the wheelbarrow between you and the cow at all times. Reach down and pull the back leg of the calf into the wheelbarrow and then pull it to where you need the calf to go. And the cow will trot along behind it because she sees her calf and the calf is at almost ground level. And so she recognizes it. When you pick it up and carry it, sometimes the calf is at a different elevation and they don't really recognize it as their calf because the calf's not supposed to be that tall. This is how our big, strong cowboys used to weigh our calves, and this is how our nephews do it now. But that, again, was not in my skill set. So what I did was I rigged the barn with pulleys in several different places because the buyers for our calves wanted to know what the birth weights were, and so it was important to do that for our continued marketing. Iowa has also invented a special kind of tape measure that measures the ankle of the calf, and where the two pieces intersect, it gives you a weight. And this is the pink side, so this is obviously a female calf. There's a blue side for the male calves. When the guys died, many of our fences looked like this. It was time to rebuild them, and they had planned to do so. They had hired a fencing pro to build 2 miles of fence every year for 5 years, with the caveat that we would take out the fence ahead of the pro. So that meant that for the next 5 years, actually 6 years, myself and several high school students and our nephews took out a couple miles of fence. And the trick was getting it out before the pro came, but not out too soon that you could still use the pasture for your cows. So anyway, now all our fences look like this. It's taken me many years, but I've put them around not only our pastures, but all of our crop ground. So each of our cropland has permanent fence. That means that we can let them in there to graze cover crops at any time, and we don't have to wait until we get the temporary electrified fence up. We can just open the gate and let them in. And since we rotationally graze, our cattle are used to 1 or 2 wire internal fences, and we can just take a plain rope or a piece of wire or poly wire and set it across the road or along the neighbors' crop fields to walk them down the road to get to the next place, and they're fine with that. And here's 2 of our herds kind of touching noses to meet each other. I also, when I first took over the management, we had to back from the road into the loadout areas. And I had never driven the truck and stock trailer before, so that was kind of overwhelming to me. But I built U-shaped driveways to each of our farmsteads, and lo and behold, nobody backs up anymore. They all take the U-shaped driveway. Isn't that amazing? I also, some of our CRP, Conservation Reserve Program, where you set aside acres and you don't farm it and the government pays you to not farm it. The contracts expired and you can renew them for 15 or 20 years, but I needed more pasture. And so I wrote a grant to put in these watering systems that are frost-free. They don't freeze, which is great. The cattle push down on the balls, and even the calves learn how to push down the balls to get something to drink. And then I made all of these watering systems so that 4 to 8 different grazing paddocks will go off of this one watering system. That way we could better utilize all of our grazing. The guys like to calve in January and February because they were farming the rest of the year. But that first year after they passed was very brutal and icy. And also we had taken turns, my husband, my brother-in-law, and myself, checking on the cows every 2 hours to see if they needed help calving. And I just had a hard time checking them every 2 hours around the clock by myself. So we noticed that the deer fawn when the grass is best for the new fawns to give the deer good milk. And so we moved our calving to April and May so that the calves could be in fresh, lush grass. The milk is rich and they can grow quite well. It also means that the cows are calving on their own, because when it's temperate temperature instead of freezing, their muscles expand better and the calves are born more easily. I also planted the dry lots to crabgrass. Crabgrass is very hardy, in case you haven't noticed. And each blade of grass has roots that are 3 foot deep and 3 foot wide. Their root spread is amazing. And that means that the soil structure has a lot of roots in it, and the cattle do not sink as deep when there's a lot of rain. So that has really helped us a lot. And they like to eat it, so it's easy to entice them into the dry lot. The only time we use the dry lots is when they're coming back to headquarters for a veterinary check or pregnancy check or something like that, or maybe to sort them to go with different breeding herds or to sort off the calves for weaning. I also studied the nutrients in our weeds. So if you look at the top part of that chart, it's our hay, but then as you go on down, there's a lot of weeds in there, and the nutritional content of these weeds is actually greater than anything that we normally feed them. So that meant that our weeds are now forage because the cattle eat them, and thus we no longer have weeds, we have forage, and therefore we don't have to spray our pastures. And that really has helped us in our regenerative journey to not have to spray them. And our cattle's health is actually better. We have a lot less cancer. Some of the plants are natural parasitoids. And that means that they kind of take care of most of the internal parasites in the livestock. And if you don't have these plants in your pasture, you can no-till at 1 pound per acre. The plantain, the chicory, the bird's foot trefoil, black medic into the pasture. And that means that we no longer have to pour or drench insecticides on our livestock. It's been 5 years since we have quit that, maybe more than that now, maybe more like 7. And surprise, our conception rates went up when we stopped using pesticides or insecticides. So when commercial agencies tell you to use these chemicals, it may not always be the best for your livestock. It may not always be the best for your soil. They may be more productive without them. The best native pastures have at least 100 different plant species in them, and ours do. But also, the beneficial insects outnumber the pests, those that do damage, by 1,700 to 1, meaning there's so many more insects that are beneficial or do no harm than there ever are as pests. And you can help this along. This is a bricks chart, and it measures the health of the plants. The insects only eat the weak and diseased plants. Those are the only ones that taste good to them. The bricks is measured by squeezing the leaves until the juice comes out of it and put those drops onto a handheld reflectometer and looking at it into the light. And this chart will show you what the results are. If you look at the yellow box, if the brick score is between 6 to 8 or above, the aphid groups are no longer interested in eating those plants. If you look at the orange box, if the brick score is 7 to 9, sucking insects are no longer interested in eating those plants. If you look at the purple box and the brick score is between 9 to 11 or above, chewing insects are no longer interested in eating the plants. And if you look at the bottom green box, if the brick score is above 10 to 12, then grasshoppers are no longer, and the insects like grasshoppers are no longer interested in eating the plants. So if we make our plants healthy enough by making the soil healthy enough and not dinging them with lots of chemicals, then we can have healthy plants that don't ever need insecticide. To help this, when we can increase the soil organic matter by 1%, it raises the water holding capacity by 4%. Now, I don't know about you, but that is very good return on your investment. So make the soil healthier any way that you can. And that also means that up to 200,000 gallons of water will be held on your farm from each rain in the top foot of soil for each acre that you have. So I don't know about you, but this helps our plants stay green 2 to 4 weeks longer than any of our neighbors' fields. And it can do that for your garden as well. We also improve the soil organic matter and have green grazing by having multi-species cover crop mixes no-tilled into all of our crop fields at every opportunity, every season, sometimes even with the plants as companions. And we have them in spring, summer, fall, and winter, all year round. Every time there's not a commodity crop in there, or any time that mix of cover crops can help fertilize or be a good companion for bringing in beneficial insects that eat the pest, then that's what we do with our cover crops. We also do pasture cropping, which is really new and weird, although it's been done for years in other parts of the world. The left is our native pasture on April 1st when we are starting our calving. And that really isn't tall enough to sustain a calving herd, nor for the calves to hide in the tall grass and keep the wind off of them. But the right-hand one is a winter cereal that is no-tilled into this native pasture. And it's not pristine. It's not like the Con's Prairie or anything. It's a go-back native pasture. And so we're not hurting anything because the cattle graze this, the rye or the triticale or the wheat, and we sometimes put legumes in it to help fertilize it, which would be winter peas or hairy vetch or common vetch for that matter. And the cattle graze this all out by the 10th of May when the native grasses are really becoming into their fullness and so and expressing themselves. So this is really helping us a lot. We also offer a buffet of minerals and vitamins, so the livestock can choose what they want to eat, and they are picky. They will choose certain ones in certain seasons, and these nutrients are also some of the same nutrients that are lacking in our soils, probably why it's lacking in our grasses and our hay. And so when the cattle recycle it in manure and urine, then that is being added to the pastures and to the crop fields when they're grazing cover crops. So we're solving two problems at once. And this past weekend, these were the active wildfires in our area, which means that it's always a critical time and these fires have not been put out. So these are still actively burning. So usually we try to landscape around our houses with lots of nice, beautiful bushes and flowers and everything. But the Kansas Forestry Service recommends that we do hardscape around the buildings and do our landscaping around the perimeter because embers can get stuck in those bushes and flowers and actually be there long enough to start the building on fire too. So thank you very much. And we've enjoyed this. And this is how we deal with loss of family members and droughts and insects and fire. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lucinda.
Okay, stop sharing.
Yep, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so thank you so much to our three panelists for their wonderful introductions. I feel like I've learned so much already. So we are going to move into the discussion portion of our event for the evening. So during this portion of the event, if you'd like to contribute anything, please use that hand raise function on Zoom to let us know that you would like to speak. And we will try to go like, if more than one person has their hand raised at a time, we're going to just go with like who we saw first and then move on from there. If you'd like to have your camera on, we feel like that fosters a sense of community. It's nice to put a face to a voice. So we do encourage you to turn your camera on if you feel comfortable. Also, if you're kind of shy, you don't really want to speak, like you're welcome to put your discussion, answers, questions, all of that in the chat as well. So does anyone have questions that they want to start us off with? We have some discussion questions ready to go if needed. But yeah, I'm just gonna turn it over to everybody else.
I did see a question from Elizabeth in the chat, but I think we might have lost her in the meeting. So one of the questions, this is for you, Angela, was on the ticks. So you mentioned the pull straight up, and she seemed to think that twisting got it out better. But is twisting increase the likelihood of it breaking off?
Yes, and I mean, isn't there always? So if you can get the tweezers below the joint that connects the head and the body, it's less likely to rip off because that's the bit that's a little bit more likely to rip. So it just depends on how you can get the tweezers positioned. So try not to twist. If you must, make sure you've got a low position, you're close to your skin.
Thanks, Angela. And yeah, I was the one in the earlier that said I used to pull them off the top of my head, but that's because I was like a kid and, you find one yourself at school. You don't have tweezers sometimes. All right. Anyone else want to jump in and ask a question or just share something if you've got something from your own experience that relates to the topics covered? Danielle?
Yes, Lyme's disease. I've had it. I think it still is dormant in my system when I get weak. It's a hard disease to catch on a blood test. I've argued with doctors. I hang out with DNR folk who are the field sampling population in Iowa to track Lyme's disease. Sadly, the DNR has stopped that. I've started wearing permethrin treated gaiters, and they're a pain in the derriere, but they really seem to help. We also do restoration on our land, and I find that, boy, doing those burns every few years, I can walk on my land and not get a tick. As soon as I go off territory, I will get ticks. And Jennifer, I can send you a book that I downloaded. It's uh, antibiotics are really tough on your system. My brother has had Lyme's disease and been on intravenous drugs. One of his friends had Lyme's disease and was getting cold medicine sent daily that she had to introduce into her body through a port. She'd had enough. She did a lot of research, and this sounds really wonky, but it's a mixture of salt and vitamin C that does not hurt your digestive system. And they both cleared the Lyme's disease. And so I make my own concoction, and it helps me feel better. I get really impatient. You're supposed to build up over a couple of weeks, but when I feel like I'm going downhill and the headaches start and the joint pain starts, I'll build up to my dose. It's a dose by weight, so many pounds and so many milligrams of the salt and the vitamin C. So I'll just send that to you, and anyone who wants to contact you can get it. But it's restoration ecology research shows that when you have the invasive species like Russian olive, Tartarian honeysuckle, and those invasive shrubs that were planted willfully by the DNR 2 generations before mine, that's where the ticks hang out. The more invasive species you have, the more of these pathogens. We have Lone Star ticks now in Iowa that we never used to have. And Angela probably knows this, but they don't just fall off and are opportunistic feeders. They will hunt you. So yeah, it's not keeping me inside, but boy, I'm getting too old to deal with this. This has been such a wonderful presentation. What marvelous panelists, and thank you. I'm so glad for the opportunity.
So Julie, first of all, I am so sorry that you have to deal with Lyme disease on the long term. It is such a burden, and it's one of those diseases where it can affect the neurological system. Like I had a friend who had developed a limp in her 30s. And it took 4 or 5 years to straighten that out. And she's now walking normally. But I mean, if you are on a farm or if you're an outdoor person, it's really hard to deal with. So I'm really sorry. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fire that the burning that you're doing. And there is starting to be a lot of evidence that it's not going to get rid of ticks entirely, but regular burning will suppress the populations. And so if the prairie already naturally burns, you're in an ecosystem that naturally burns anyway. And you can choose, a calm day and do a prescribed burn correctly. It's supposed to actually help with tick control. So kudos to you. Awesome, amazing. And there was another point, alpha-gal. They are so aggressive. Oh my gosh, you are so like this is a tick that is coming up from the south. It likes warmer weather. So this is also the tick that spreads alpha-gal, which is why we're starting to see cases of it here in Iowa. And it doesn't just like hang out on grass. It literally, like you said, will hunt you. So that is a much more aggressive tick. Check yourselves, check yourselves, check your.
I guess I've got a quick question for Angela. Do you mind sharing about the two different, well, I guess, is it only two different types of ticks? And how you would find out if you have Lyme disease or alpha-gal? That might be just some helpful context.
So a guy named Sean Cross, Dr. Sean Cross in Nebraska will actually, if you send him your tick, and you can send him from anywhere, and I'll put his name in the, yes, thank you, Maureen. That is how you spell alpha-gal. Sean, I think this is how you spell his name. He's at the University of Nebraska, I believe in Omaha, and he will tell you what kind of tick you have because there's several. Most of them are in the genus Ixodes. They have different species. But there are so many different tick-borne diseases like Powassan, Ehrlichiosis, babesiosis. And some ticks carry up to 3 of them, and some ticks only carry 1 of them. And so I don't want to confuse everybody. Like I get confused still. Yes, thank you, Lauren. And Sean will take that and he will tell you what kind of tick it is, and he will also tell you what your tick has. So if you send in a tick and it's the only tick you've been bitten with, and that tick has Lyme disease, go get tested for Lyme disease. If it has nothing and it's the only tick bite you've had, you're probably okay. Here in Iowa, you can send it also to ISU, Ryan Smith, but he can't do disease testing. He can only do tick testing. So he'll tell you what kind of tick it is. And in that way, you can go online and kind of figure out like, okay, this is a black-legged tick or this is a deer tick. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Lucinda's 100% right. Anaplasmosis can come from livestock. So the tick will bite the livestock or it'll bite something else, and then the tick will crawl into the human when you're handling the livestock. So Lucinda, I imagine you've been exposed to a lot of
I think it's cool that we have a tick guy in Omaha. That's great. Wonderful to hear that.
And he's
Um,
super.
yeah, does anybody have any other tick related questions? Is there other questions unrelated to ticks that anyone has? Or yes, Mo, go ahead.
Kind of on that note, I just wanted to ask if you live in a state that is not Iowa, not Nebraska, how would you find somebody to test your tick? Just
John
search.
will test it from anywhere. He gets tick species from all over the country, literally all over the country, like East Coast as well.
All right. If no one has any questions or new discussion topics, I'm going to jump into one of these discussion questions, if that's okay. All right, let's see which one. So I feel like Lucinda touched on this a bit during her presentation, but what are some preventative measures to take ahead of time to be prepared for emergencies that might pop up? And this can really look like anything. You can think of any emergency off the top of your head and how you would maybe want to, you know, be proactive about preventing an emergency before it becomes one.
I think the best bet is to take CPR classes and also take first aid classes, but also make sure that you learn how to put on a tourniquet the proper way and to um, know how to use Israeli patches. And those are really important. We don't dehorn our cattle anymore because we have ones that are naturally pulled, meaning they don't have horns. But when we used to dehorn, there's something called bleed stop, and you can actually get bleed stop for people at the pharmacy too, and carry that with you all the time. I have one relative who is on blood thinners, and it's very important to have bleed stop also in case they get too much of a dose or in case they get cut because they don't their blood doesn't coagulate as fast anymore. But learn the Heimlich method to know how to help with choking, learn CPR, because many times you're a distance from help. Um, you know, when you can die in seconds and help is minutes away, you really need to know how to take care of everybody in your community.
And you can take all of these things online now. I am required to maintain my CPR certification as an exercise physiologist, but I also I taught American Red Cross first aid for a couple of years, and everything is now offered online. So you don't have to try to even find a place to do it. Just hop online. You can do the whole thing.
I can remember when we had CPR class and the music that we were to do our presses to was "Staying Alive, Staying Alive." And it's great to sing that song when you're doing it.
I heard Pink Pony Club works too now.
Okay.
So I had no
Go
idea that there
ahead.
was so much fire in the Midwest before I moved here, because out in Arizona, things burn all the time, and we've been evacuated a couple of times. And so one of the things that my partner and I do is we have backpacks and we have a week's supply of clothing and any medications we need, and some granola bars and that sort of thing, like food that's easy to eat that doesn't require cooking. So in case we need to evacuate, we get out quickly. 2 or 3 days ago, I saw two grass fires here in Iowa, like outside of Iowa City, and I was like, wait, where am I? And it was exciting to kind of, well, exciting, maybe not in a great way, but just to kind of like, oh, Boswell, Arizona. Okay. Hmm. So I always am kind of ready to evacuate should need be. Yeah.
It's called a bug out bag, and it's good for everybody to have it, whether it's going to be a flood or a tornado or fire or whatever natural disaster is happening, or even an unnatural disaster for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say they can also go by go bags because you just take them and go. But yeah, that's a great point, Lucinda. They're good for any emergency that may arise. I know here in the Midwest, like we're prone to um, tornadoes and such, so having those supplies at the ready and just in case, you know, never a bad thing. Um, Does anybody else have anything they'd like to contribute to this question? Any new questions?
Oh, on a tornado, while people are thinking of questions, make sure that you get away from it at a right angle instead of trying to outrun it because you can't outrun it. But if you go at a right angle, unless it changes direction, you're able to get away from it faster.
I was gonna say, is laying in the ditch still good advice?
It's better than nothing.
Just
I grew up in
don't,
Kansas.
yeah, don't go under an overpass. That's bad advice. A ditch
Because it
is,
will suck you out of
yeah,
it. Mhm.
yeah.
And cause more harm than just laying in a ditch. Mhm.
Yeah, on the subject of extreme weather patterns, how has like recent changes in those patterns impacted emergency preparedness for folks, or how has it impacted like your way of life, your way of farming, your career, working outdoors? Um, how has extreme weather impacted that?
We have had 4 years of drought. Um, it's finally broken, I think, this fall. We hope. We've gotten some snow and some rains. Um, that's really affected our yield. It's really affected the number of animals that we can have. Um, the Because we've done soil health for so long, we have nutritious grasses. But if we had not been doing that, the grass would not have as much nutrients in it as it would need to have for the volume, for the biomass. And also, it's warmer, so different plants are making themselves known on both the prairie and some are easier to grow because the climate is warmer, and some are harder to grow because the climate is warmer. And when you go to the local coffee shop, they're saying, "Oh, it's just so cold today, so that negates global warming." Well, we're talking about averages across the whole entire year. We're not talking about 1 or 2 or 3 days. And also with the so many um, people being let go from the national weather stations, we're having poor prediction. We have rains when they're not predicted. We have no rain when they are predicted. They don't update very often, and or often enough, and that's really hard to plan when you're going to be doing your farm work or your gardening.
Mm. Yeah, we just had a surprise snowstorm in eastern Nebraska the other day, so yeah, can definitely relate to that. Um, Go ahead, Ellen.
So for me personally, as I said, I'm sick all the time. So one of the things that affects me is I don't regulate my temperature very well. So I'm very sensitive to extreme hot and extreme cold, which of course we're having more of both of those. And for myself, I have had to be a lot more careful about hydrating. And I am not a person who likes sweet beverages, but having to drink the Gatorade type things with electrolytes to maintain my hydration during those ridiculously hot days. And when we've had, a straight week of -15, I have had to make sure that I really have appropriate clothing to be outside, because when you have livestock, it doesn't matter if it's 105 or -15, you still have to go out and make sure that you have food and water and all of that. And I think, unfortunately, we are going to be having more of those extreme conditions, and both of those things, even if you don't have a chronic disease, can be really dangerous if you are not keeping an eye on hydration levels and that sort of thing. So that's, and I mean, it's not that I didn't think about it before, but wow, it's really moving to front of mind a lot more often now.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, I was gonna ask too, like last year was pretty rough with the wildfire smoke coming down from Canada. So I was wondering if there was any ways that you adapted to the wildfire smoke. And I also know dust has been a bigger problem in Kansas as well.
Well, it was hard to know whether it was dust from Canada or our own dust, but we have had, unfortunately, the Interstate 70 closed because of dust storms, and that's been really bad because there have been accidents that have actually killed people and or seriously harmed them, and it's just because of the dust in the air. Um, we happened to be in Brewster, Kansas when there was a huge dust storm like that people were killed on the interstate, but we were on a regenerative farm. And yes, it was high winds. Yes, our um, vehicle looked like somebody had thrown mud cakes at it, but we did not have the amount of dust there that they had on the interstate just a mile away. So it really does depend upon how you are farming, and we need to encourage more people to not till, to just slice the ground to put the seed in it, but not till it up. And also that keeps the microbiology there, which can actually help you use much less fertilizer, if any at all, and it can help you with not having the need for insecticides because you're not putting chemicals on your plant, which makes them weak, which makes the insects come. So it's a whole system, and I think that all of us need to learn it because the health and welfare of everybody in this country depends upon that.
Go ahead, Angela, and then I think Ellen, you had started saying something, and then okay. So we'll go Ellen and then Angela, if that's okay.
No, I was just going to say it was difficult when we had some of those really bad smoke days. But it's like I think to myself, oh, well, I mean, I can put a mask on because I do have masks when I have to go out. Short-term solution. um, but none of my animals don't have masks, and I don't know what the solution there is. I did try to make sure that nobody got too far from home on those days. So
Go ahead, Angela.
Has anybody ever heard of valley fever? Yeah, okay. So out in the West, we have a dust-borne disease called valley fever. It's a fungal disease, and it will get into your lungs if you breathe it during a dust storm. And so far, it hasn't moved to the Midwest, but some of the soils in Nebraska and Kansas are very similar to the soils out west. And so they think that perhaps with climate change, as these areas get warmer, that valley fever might move into the Midwest. And so those dust storms that are kicking up the soil and disturbing it may become spreaders of disease. And I know this sounds absolutely awful. I'm so sorry that I have to talk about it, but like I just wanted to hit home Lucinda's point because gosh, I'm so glad you said something about no-till. The less we can stir up dust, the less likely it's going to be kicking up all of these fungal things that are starting to adapt to warmer temperatures.
And I did see a question for you, Lucinda, in the chat. Shirley wanted to know if your farm's certified organic or not.
We are not certified organic because I'm still fighting invasive um, locust trees that have thorns 6 inches long. And I need to use chemicals to kill them because fire just makes them mad and they come up from the ends of the roots and are 10 times worse than they were before. So there's no way to certify organic and to just spot spray those particular trees um, with with the chemical. So, but we are regenerative, which means that we have not used fungicides in about 10 years. We have not used insecticides for about 7. We are using less and less fertilizer all the time because we are growing our own fertilizer in the root exudates of the cover crops, which is really exciting because the natural root exudates are much, how do you say, much more bioavailable to the plants than any chemical could ever be. And we have learned that going cold turkey doesn't work. I tried that at first, but you need to wean them off of it like you do somebody who's on crack cocaine, because they get propped up on those chemical fertilizers and they just don't want to give up their laziness. So you have to reduce it 10 or 15% a year until you're down to nothing. And the interesting thing about regenerative farms is that when we do our test of fertilizer, you do a rate of no fertilizer, and then do 20 pounds per acre, 40 pounds per acre, 60 pounds per acre, 80 pounds per acre, until you get up to whatever the cooperative or who's selling it to you recommends. And there is not a whole lot of difference between the 0 and the highest level. It's like once you create the biology in your soil, chemical fertilizer is no longer effective. And I wish that everybody could get to that level because chemical fertilizer is so expensive. But the seed that I buy to plant in the cover crops, yes, it costs something, but I feel so much better about using it, and I don't spend as much on that as what the prices were for an equivalent amount of that kind of fertilizer from a chemical company. So, yes, we are regenerative. We are not certified organic yet, and probably or possibly will not be because I can sell all of my beef without going through all of the paperwork that it requires. And they require more paperwork from the small farmers than they do from the big ones. Go figure. As if we're not totally conscientious and have well-trained staff like me, myself, and I, as opposed to somebody that you hire that's just there for the job or something.
Yeah, I feel like they make organic people who want to be certified organic jump through so many hoops, and it's such a process that people just don't even pursue it. And I think that's by design, but that's my opinion. All right. Okay. Are there any new questions, new discussion topics popping up in people's minds? Go ahead, Jennifer.
I do have a question for Ellen around the chronic disease management. My family, I think a lot of us have varying degrees of hypermobility. I was wondering if you had any specific tips or tricks on how to prevent injury and keep mobile.
Yeah. So I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome among my collection. That's my hobby. I collect chronic disease. And so the very most important thing you can do is strength train. And everyone should be strength training anyway, even if you're not hypermobile. It is crucial as you get older to maintain your muscle mass, not just for function, but that muscle mass is physiologically, metabolically active and doing so many other things for your body besides just moving your body parts around. So, but strength training is absolutely key. And I think that's probably why it took so long for me to get my diagnosis, because I was strength training, right? So I was doing all this work anyway. And so it really, like, I did not get diagnosed until my early 40s. And it's a genetic condition. So I've had it this whole time. But yes, strength training, definitely the number one thing for sure for hypermobility. And it does not mean, if you are hypermobile, it does not mean that you can just not stretch either, because what tends to happen is when your joints are hypermobile, your muscles actually have to work overtime to hold your joints together. So your muscles can actually get really tight because your joints are hypermobile and your muscles are actually having to work like overtime. It also is one of the reasons why people who are hypermobile tend to get fatigued a lot more quickly doing the same kind of physical things as someone who's not hypermobile, because their muscles are already exhausted from trying to hold everything together. So targeted flexibility work is still important as well. And what we're finding out is actually hypermobility is way more common than they thought it was. It's affecting a lot more people. So yeah, lift weights.
Yeah, thank you for that. I actually had to leave farming due to chronic illness, which is really unfortunate. But I still get to work in ag doing this job, so that's a win for me. I didn't know that stretching was good for EDS, so that's good to know. Um, all right, it looks like there are a couple questions in the chat here. I feel like since the subject that we are centering this learning circle around is more on the safety end of things and not so much on organic certification, I do want to keep it on track with that. We have about 4 more minutes here left with the discussion. With this question on Medicaid, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand like what can you sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name, but can you maybe give us a little bit more detail on what you're looking for with this question here in the chat?
Madhavi, your question on the new genetic Medicaid and chip, you mind elaborating? Oh, is that specific to the organic certifications? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Since this isn't a learning circle about organic certification, I do want to just keep us
Yeah.
on subject, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If anyone knows the answer, they can write it in the chat though.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. Okay. So I guess the last question, if no one else has questions, that I have for each of our panelists is what resources are your go-to, or where have you learned the most on the topic of your form of farmer safety? Anyone can go first.
I don't know if it's my form of farmer safety, but certainly since my move, um, my family had no farming history. I didn't know what I was doing. And so all of the incredible women that I have met, both in person here in Southwest Wisconsin, through Soil Sisters and neighbors, and also online through WFAN, and all of these people that I talk to have been, that's absolutely been the most important resource for me. Um, I've been teaching these learning circles through Renewing the Countryside. In fact, we're having one tomorrow that's on Lyme disease and tick-borne illness. And all of the different people that we've brought in for those as well. Like that is absolutely the number one resource, has been other women who are farming, who want to share and want to support. And that's been the most important resource for me. Taught me how to use chainsaws and things like that.
Yeah. Equipment safety, very important subject, especially with a chainsaw, I would imagine. Um, Lucinda or Angela, do you have any resources you'd like to share out?
Even though I'm not organic, I went to Acres USA conferences, and they have wonderful speakers. Kansas Soil Health Alliance, Kansas Grazing Coalition, No Till on the Plains, all of them, and SAVE, which is actually helping veterans retrain for um, farming or owning a farmette, basically. But civilians can take that class too. It's just that they don't have the tuition paid because of the GI Bill or whatever it's called now. But just networking with other people who are doing what you want to do, and listening and learning. Ask lots of questions. Don't be shy. Just ask. And the organic and the regenerative groups are more open with sharing information than the conventional groups are. It's more like a big family.
Thank you. Angela, is this your resource here that you want to share in the chat?
Yeah. There's no way I could possibly follow Lucinda because she's just so well spoken and a wealth of knowledge. And so I just wanted to, yeah.
Yes, you can.
And I did
It's
drop
going.
the Learning Circle link for women. It's Aging Strong, is the series. So check.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have Mo pull our slides back up here real quick, and we will start finishing up our evening here. So this QR code, and we'll drop the link to the evaluation in the chat as well, is just going to take you to a quick survey. The data that we get back from these surveys helps us continue funding HOP, and it helps us continue to host fun events like this. And so we'd really, really appreciate it if you could fill out that survey. You don't have to do it right this moment, but sometime in the next 24 hours would be wonderful. And yeah, I'll give everyone a second to get into that before I send you off. Does anybody else have any other closing thoughts real quick here before we close out the evening?
I will quickly plug, I don't have the registration page up. We'll be including them in our newsletter coming out next week. But we are going to be doing a series in partnership with the city of Cedar Rapids this spring of virtual, but also some in-person learning circles, and also some more instructional webinars. So it's kind of a mix between this type of conversation and more of a lecture type experience. So stay tuned on that. I think we're going to be covering water quality, also how to manage tenant relationships slash family relationships as a woman farmer or a landowner, as well as we're going to be offering a chainsaw training class on May 9th. So we're working on getting all of those set up, but just teasing that those are coming. And Angela, I saw you were ready to say something, so pass.
All right. I do want to just plug our mentorship again here real quick. So the Harvesting Our Potential mentorship, it's a farming mentorship for women and gender nonconforming folks. We just opened up the application for mentees who would like to join the program. We added, I want to say, 9 new mentors this year. So we do have quite a few new farmers in the mix, as well as people who have been with us for years and years. So if you're interested in farming mentorship, go ahead and check that out. I can drop the link in the chat here, or one of my coworkers can as well. Whoever gets there first, I suppose. Um, and yeah, we'll also send out some resources via email after the event, probably in the next couple days. So you don't need to like remember all of this exactly right this moment. There we go. All right. Mo, next slide, please. Mentors specific to region state. It is a Midwestern-based mentorship, so you do have to have a residential address in the Midwest to participate.
Yeah, and I think we've got 8 states now.
Yeah, we just added Indiana this year. So, all right. These are some of our funders. So we just want to give them a shout out. Georgia is not included in our Midwestern region. If
I will,
anyone has, oh, go ahead.
I was going to also plug WFAN is going to be doing strategic planning this year to refresh our, we'll see if it's 3 or 5 year strategic plan. So there will be opportunities for you to give some feedback. We'll probably have like a mid-March member survey go out, and I might broaden it to the larger community as well. So if you have interest in WFAN expanding its range, I think that's where you can share that feedback. Right now, we've been, we're historically based out of Iowa and have kind of expanded across the Midwest with national membership. So that is a point of conversation of what is our geography. So that will be a space too where you can give that feedback.
All right. Well, thank you again to our presenters and our speakers for great, amazing presentations, and everything that you did and spoke on this evening was so wonderful. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who attended the event this evening. We really appreciate you showing up and, making it worth the time. And I just want to say thanks to Mo and Jennifer for all their help with coordinating this event. Really, really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without them. So, yeah, that's all I got for y'all. So, again, thanks for being here.
And
And I hope you have a great evening. Oh, go ahead.
kudos to Lauren because this was her brainchild. I want to make it very clear this was her idea, and I really appreciate her thinking of this.
Yeah.